Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making some golden, delicious apple fritters. So let's get started. First off, we're gonna grab a large pot or Dutch oven and fill it with 1.5 inches of your favorite frying oil. You could use vegetable or peanut, it's up to you. Pop a thermometer on if you're using one, and we're gonna take this to medium-high heat and let it come to 350 Fahrenheit. Now it's time to grab 2 large apples. We want about 1 pound in total, and you could use Honeycrisp, Granny Smith, or really any of your favorites. This is a very simple recipe. Give your apples a peel. I want all the texture to be from that crisp, delicious outer shell and not from the peels. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week, and there's always something delicious on the horizon. Now we want to cut the flesh from the core. We're gonna dice this up into smallish, like think 1/2 inch pieces. Cutting your apples into smaller, uniform pieces ensures they'll all be pleasantly soft and have a lovely texture. If they're giant, you'll have crispy apple fritters on the inside, and that's not the vibe we want. Fritters are a wonderful morning treat because, unlike a traditional donut, there is no yeasted rise time needed. They come together so fast, and fresh out of the fryer, they are impossible to beat. So good. All right, my apples are all prepped up. I'm gonna transfer these to a separate bowl now. Personally, I love the combination of apples and lemon. So if you want, you can add about 3 tablespoons or the juice of 1/2 of a lemon right into the apples and give them a toss. It'll make them more zingy and really wake things up. Salt and acid are important to desserts and breakfast treats. Give it a toss. There we go. And we're gonna set this aside while we make our easy peasy batter. If you can make pancakes, you can make apple fritters, and I have to say these are more delicious. Now in a large bowl, we're gonna add our dry ingredients, starting off with 1.5 cups or 180 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm using a scale because that gives me the best results. To slightly sweeten and soften things up, 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. The real sweetness is gonna come from the lovely glaze you add at the end or the cinnamon sugar you roll them in. You have a choice. To puff things up, I'm using 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. These are best fresh. They're not the best the day after, but if you wanted to prep things out, you could have your wet ingredients in one bowl, your dry ingredients in the other, and then just combine them along with your prepared and lemon juice coated apples the next day. This way it would come together so fast, and a lot of us is kind of groggy in the morning and don't want to do a lot. For some contrast, I'm adding a teaspoon of salt, and of course apples and cinnamon go hand in hand, so 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you want, you could use any of your favorite spices, so it could be apple pie spice. You could add a pinch of allspice or cardamom. It's really up to you. Grab a whisk. Our scale's done. Just whisk this together to combine. And now grab a medium bowl for your wet mixture. By the way, during this time, you should totally keep an eye on your oil and have your nose ready too. You'll smell it once it gets hot, and you might want to take it off heat, turn it down to low, or increase heat depending on your cooktop. We want 350 by the time this is all together. Into my medium bowl, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of whole milk. This really is very similar to pancake or waffle batter. 2 large eggs. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. We're gonna give this a whisk now. Break those eggs up. So if my kids requested apple fritters, this is what I would have. I would have my chopped apples and wet mixture in the fridge, the dry mixture is out and covered, and then the day of, I'm just assembling as the oil heats. I'm just combining as the oil heats. All right, now we're gonna pour the wet into the dry. And for the tenderest apple fritters possible, don't overmix your batter. So use a spatula and just fold it together until it's almost combined. I still want to see streaks of flour here and there because we have to mix the apples in too. Smells delicious. Okay, mostly mixed, it's time to dump in my apples. And now just gently fold them in. Beautiful. The lemon, apple, cinnamon combination is so delicious already. It smells amazing. Okay. As soon as your oil hits 350, it's time to portion out your apple fritters. This is easiest with a 1/4 cup scoop, but if you don't, just grab 2 large spoons, eyeball it out, and get them into the oil. You want them to be similarly sized so no one feels cheated and so they all cook evenly. If they're too big, by the way, burnt on the outside, cooked on the inside, or golden and beautiful on the outside, raw and runny and gross on the inside. So keep them fairly small, and I'll give you a couple more hints during the frying too. And you also have to line your baking sheet. So grab a rimmed baking sheet, a cooling rack, and some paper towels. Pop the cooling rack in, and now your fritters have a place to sit and drain the oil without steaming because you want them to be crisp all over. Depending on the size of your bowl, you'll want to be frying 4 to 6 at a time. That way you're not here all day. But watch the temperature of your oil. As you add your fritters in, they are so cold compared to the hot oil, they will bring the temperature right down. Still have to fiddle with it for a while and just make sure it doesn't get too hot and it doesn't get too cold. Plop that in and give it a smush. I really like to smush them down. You can use a spoon or your scoop. It just gives them more surface area, more nooks and crannies, and they get much crisper. If your fritters are little irregularly shaped balls, they're gonna be kind of doughy in the middle and just not as delicious. It's also more surface area for all the glaze. These guys will have to fry for about 2 minutes until they're golden brown on the bottom. You can feel free to check them with your spider that you'll be using to take things out. Once that happens, flip them over and fry for another 2 minutes or until they're golden all over. When you fry things at the perfect temperature, you're going to have a beautiful crisp golden shell on the outside, and on the inside everything was steam heated, so you'll have the perfect fritter. If your oil is too cold, the oil will penetrate into the fritter. They get kind of soggy and gross. That can also happen if they're overcrowded in the pan, so just keep an eye on that temperature, very important. Okay, these are good, so flip them over. Beautiful. It's been another 2 minutes. These are golden brown all over, so carefully remove them with your spider or slotted spoon onto your prepared baking sheet. And you're gonna repeat this process for the rest of your batter. While those are frying, let's make our delicious toppings. The easiest one is a tablespoon of cinnamon into 1 cup of sugar. Just add that in and give it a mix. If you're making a glaze, you have a ton of choices. 2 cups of powdered sugar with 3 to 4 tablespoons of milk or lemon juice, or both, and half a teaspoon of vanilla. So a classic vanilla glaze is lovely. If I was making these for the kids, I would totally have a lemon glaze because I love everything lemon. Give this a mix and you're really just going to add milk until you have the desired consistency. You might want it really runny and completely covered or thicker for a nice drizzle. It's totally up to you. I'm so happy with the way these look. This is how our fritter should be. Thin, not a big glob, and tons of little nooks and crannies and tendrils that are crispy, fried, and delicious. Right now, you could either roll and cover these in cinnamon sugar, which is delicious and lovely. Just like that. Or you could dip or drizzle your fritters in glaze. It's totally up to you. I like to see the golden skin of the fritters, and I don't want to cover them completely in glaze. This batch is going to be gone in a flash. My boys will eat these up. However, they keep in the fridge for 5 days or on the counter for 2 days, both in sealed containers. You want to reheat them in the oven, 350 for 10 minutes, or the air fryer, 325 for 4 minutes. Once coated, they are ready to enjoy. Look at those apples. So lovely. This is a clump of apples held together by a thin little layer of batter that's crisp and golden on the outside and fluffy and tender on the inside. Perfect morning treat. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, hit the subscribe button and check out my breakfast treat playlist.